It's the Super Showdown predictions on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. WWE Super Showdown, most likely a glorified house show. It's not really a pay-per-view per se, but there are some big matches here that could be pay-per-view quality. And then you have those throwaway matches where you see it as a house show. So that's why it's like a glorified house show in my opinion.
Some decent matches, some big names, but a lot of fluff thrown in between the big matches. So unfortunately, it does feel big in a sense, but at the same time, I agree. It does kind of seem like a glorified house show.
All right, let's start with our first match here. It's for the SmackDown Women's Championship, a rematch between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Do they keep the title on Becky?
Yeah. I'm definitely going to call a Becky retention in this match. I think that she has done a really good job carrying herself as the heel in this. And kudos to both of them, because this is probably one of the better feuds that I can remember in recent memory from SmackDown, especially because I don't think it was really meant to carry the show. Like there's been you've got AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, which is another good feud, Miz and Daniel Bryan, but this one is easily within the mix as a really good feud. So I'm going to go with Becky Lynch in this one.
I also think it is a Becky Lynch retention. The only way Charlotte Flair wins is if by disqualification. I do not see that kind of a screwy finish. Becky retains. And, Becky Lynch has been unbelievable. And to all those that say they're booking Becky as the heel, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, they were kind of throwing stuff at Road Dogg saying, why are you booking her like the heel, even though she's getting cheered? And it's like, no. It's just the interpretation you are taking.
Right.
We are booking her the way we are for you to cheer. You're cheering her. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing there. Yep. So, if that is real and that's not a cover-up, great job by the SmackDown writing team. We'll keep it on SmackDown for the next match. It's Asuka and Naomi versus the IIconics. Now, remember, the IIconics are from Australia, so this could be a hometown win. And I think it will be a hometown win here. Yeah. I think the IIconics win in some kind of heelish way.
I'm going to go with the IIconics too, and, especially like we're talking about, we talked a couple of weeks ago about Asuka and just mentioned how she's been kind of wasted away, and it's unfortunate because she's been left off SmackDown and they bring her back, and now she's not really in any major feud, so she's just kind of thrown in this position where...
Well, she's in the Mixed Match Challenge.
She might as well be off the show. Who cares about that?
I don't know.
Does anybody watch that?
Yeah.
Do any of you people watch that crap?
They brought it for a season too.
My God, I forgot when we talk about oversaturation. I would have forgot about that. So now you reminded me. But either way, so yeah, Asuka, going back to the lead up to her and Charlotte into WrestleMania. She hadn't lost in X amount of years, X amount of matches. After she lost to Charlotte, going back to SmackDown, she's just kind of done nothing of any really, nothing with any notoriety behind it. So. It's unfortunate. It
is unfortunate, but I think this happens sometimes where, you want to keep them on TV because people want to see them, but at the same time, if you have nothing for them, you kind of throw them at the wall and hope something sticks, and just right now it's not sticking. Kind of the same thing happened with our next match. We have for the SmackDown Live Tag Team Championships, The New Day versus The Bar. Now, The Bar had a similar absence, just like Asuka, except this time... they come back, and they're in the Tag Team Championship match. Kind of random, but at the same time, it is The Bar, so it's not like they're not worthy of it.
Yeah.
But
I think the difference would be not having The Bar on, they still maintain a certain sort of relevance because they weren't just kind of, all right, well, they're back on, they're not doing anything, they're losing to jobbers, whatever. Asuka was kind of like, okay, she's thrown into this thing with Carmella, loses a bunch of matches, now she's off, she's back. I don't know.
Right.
So...
Well, I think for this Tag Team Championship match, we have a New Day retention. I don't see the belts changing hands here. What do you think? Bar?
I'm actually going to go with The Bar in this one.
Really?
Yes. I think they're going to win the belts.
What makes you believe that?
Nothing really other than, there has to be some belts that change hands on the show. And I don't think it's going to be in one of the championship match. So if it's going to be any belts that are changing hands, this would be the one that I could see happening. In order for this not to feel like a glorified house show, I feel like some belts have to change hand or a belt has to change hands. And this one I could see as easily switching over, and it wouldn't really cause like a a huge letdown for people who didn't tune into the show.
Did the belts change hands at Greatest Royal Rumble? Actually, no. We had the Raw Tag Team Championship match when it was vacant.
Right.
So that was technically a changing of the hands. But other than that, there was no other changing of the hands. Because Brock won the Universal. I don't think...
No. Roman was the uncrowned champion.
That's right. I know. But Brock retained. The SmackDown Tag Champions retained. And Seth Rollins retained as Intercontinental Champion.
Brock didn't lose. Do you remember that?
Brock won the match. The ref said Brock won. I understand what you're saying. His feet didn't touch. Roman's did first. Anyway, moving on to the next match. Another hometown hero here in this match. It's for the Cruiserweight Championship. Cedric Alexander goes up against Buddy Murphy. Who wins?
Yep. I don't know. I think this is going to be an entertaining match. I think that Cedric Alexander will probably retain here. Going back to their match several months ago, if you go back and watch any match from 205 Live, that might be one of the matches you want to watch. So I expect this to be one of the matches that ends up delivering in a big way, because I don't think a lot of people are expecting much from this match.
I think this will be a good match. Obviously, the one that gets talked about most is this one here after SummerSlam, the 205 Live episode. And again, Buddy Murphy is from Australia, and if you're saying that this show needs a title change for it to not be a glorified house show, why not make it this one here? Maybe this helps get people to start watching 205 Live and say, hey, this is some good wrestling that we're seeing here between Buddy Murphy and Cedric Alexander. And it's not on the pre-show. It's actually going to be on the main card. It might be a good moment. They'll have a good match. So I say Buddy Murphy wins. Moving on to our next match. It's for the #1 contendership for the WWE Championship. The Miz versus Daniel Bryan.
I'm going with The Miz in this one. I think they're going to actually pull the trigger with him. I think he deserves it. I keep saying I feel like he's been one of the most consistent heels over the past several years, dating back to when he feuded with John Cena. So I'm going to say take The Miz in this one.
I, too, am taking The Miz because I've been saying it ever since this match was first announced. The Miz is winning. Daniel Bryan's winning the Royal Rumble. And Bryan will win the championship from The Miz.
At WrestleMania.
Maybe not be the main event, but it's going to happen. But one thing that is very... it's cool and good about this match and the WWE Championship match. Let's say they go the opposite. Say Daniel Bryan wins the #1 contendership. That means Samoa Joe can win the WWE Championship. And then you still have Daniel Bryan can win the championship. The Miz becomes the Royal Rumble winner. And then maybe they do The Miz wins at WrestleMania or still have the match. Like, either way, they can't book. They really, really, really have to really F this up. They have to really try to F up the booking in this. They did a really good job on how to set this up for all four guys.
Oh, you never know. They could end up in a fatal 4-way in the next pay-per-view.
Well, the rumor is that's what's happening at Crown Jewel.
Yep.
So, speaking of the WWE Championship, that's our next match. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. Does Samoa Joe not only take AJ's house, AJ's family, but now AJ's title?
Right. I'm going to say no. I think AJ retains here just because, you know, this does feel, like I said, this does feel special in a certain way, but it's also missing something. You know, it does kind of feel like a glorified house show, if you want to call it that. And I can't imagine AJ Styles' title reign coming to an end at a show like this. You know, they're going to want to make it feel special. If Samoa Joe's going to beat him for the title, it should be at a bigger event, maybe like a Royal Rumble or a WrestleMania. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be Samoa Joe that beats him, but in order for it to feel somewhat special, I think it has to happen at a bigger pay-per-view on a bigger stage. So not only do I think AJ retains here, but I'm hoping he retains for those facts alone.
I think AJ retains because the video game is coming out a couple weeks after Super Showdown. I think they want to keep the title on him at least until that video game is released. Then The Miz will have the #1 contendership, or Daniel Bryan, whoever. that's where he drops it at Survivor Series, I would think. And then that will start the road to WrestleMania for The Miz and Daniel Bryan. So, moving on to the next match here. It could be a 6-woman tag. It may be dropped to a tag team match because it features Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, and Rowdy Ronda Rousey going against the Riott Squad of Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan. Now, Liv Morgan got a concussion this past Monday on Raw because of the kick that Brie Bella gave her.
2 kicks.
2 kicks. Now, it seems like the wrestling fan is blaming Brie, but the wrestling vets are blaming Liv.
Yeah, I think I told you about how I listen to Taz's podcast frequently, and he even said it. You know, this is wrestling. It's pretty much a contact sport, even though they know what they're doing out there. Accidents happen. You know, their timing was just off, and she really booted her in the face pretty badly. But
well, the one thing I noticed about the kick was, one, the first kick you couldn't tell, but then the second kick you could, because Liv Morgan dropped as soon as she got hit the first time. But for some reason, Brie Bella went faster. She was going at a normal pace and hitting her on the chest, and then as soon as Liv dropped, it was like Brie went faster, and I don't know why that happened. But then there's actually a freeze frame that everyone is using for their thumbnails on YouTube. And when she's kicking Liv Morgan, she's actually looking away.
Right.
Which is, I don't understand why you would be looking away, but like she was looking at either Sarah Logan or Ruby Riott, whoever in the corner, while she's making that kick. And that second kick really, I think that was the one that gave her the concussion. So, hopefully this ends up as a tag team match for Liv Morgan's sake, so she doesn't get another concussion from Brie Botch Mode Bella. But either way, I think this will be a Riott Squad victory.
You do. I'm going Team Ronda here. I'm going to say Team Ronda and a Nikki Bella heel turn, because that's going to be coming eventually if you believe that Ronda and Nikki are going to be facing each other at Evolution. Also, what's up with Ronda with the... Oh, I'm going to have an open challenge every week. She has one week, then she's not on Raw. Last week she wasn't on Raw.
So?
Just typical booking WWE. I don't know.
Maybe she had a prior commitment that she couldn't be on Raw.
So why not introduce the open challenge a week when she's going to be there consecutive weeks? It kind of loses its whole purpose if she's not going to be there often.
Not if she misses 1 week.
Come off it.
All right. Anyway, another 6-man tag team match here involving all the Raw champions. We have The Shield, our Universal Champion Roman Reigns, our Intercontinental Champion Seth Rollins, and not a champion, Dean Ambrose, against Braun Strowman and the tag team champions Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Who wins this one?
This one's kind of hard to predict because it's a smaller level show. I guess you could say that because, you know, it's not one of their bigger shows, bigger pay-per-views. I'm going to say Dogs of War because they probably need it more than The Shield needs it.
It will be interesting, but I do think The Shield win. If this is where it's a glorified house show, typically they have the baby faces win, especially the bigger top of the card matches. So in this case, I do think that The Shield will win, but it's so interesting how they booked Raw this past week. Throughout the episode, they're teasing an Ambrose turn, they're teasing a McIntyre joining The Shield, but I actually think they might be teasing that McIntyre and Ambrose both split and they form a tag team.
Right.
And that would be a great little six-man tag team way to build the tag team division, I think.
It would be interesting. I think, so when we actually talked about this feud, you were actually in favor of the fact that they have all of the titles tied up in this feud.
Yes.
And I'm actually kind of against that because it's kind of like you have all your eggs in one basket. All these people that are feuding with one another, it's kind of like, okay, well, they all have the belts. They're all kind of in the main event, you know, co-main event, if you want to call it that.
But this is kind of like what happened in the Attitude Era, where, you know, The Rock was the heavyweight champion, and you have Shamrock, who's the Intercontinental champion, but he's also part of the main event because he's in the corporation.
Yeah,
and you have Boss Man as the hardcore champion.
Yeah.
You have Austin and although this is separate cases, but like Austin and Shawn Michaels were tag team champions, and then the 2-man power trip were tag team champions. Like, it's good that they have all the belts in the main event picture, because what a lot of people do not like, especially today, is that the titles have lost their credibility and their value. And I think this is helping that, because you have a guy like Dolph Ziggler, who was the Intercontinental Champion, and Seth Rollins, who is the Intercontinental Champion. Now they're in the main event picture, so it helps elevate the Intercontinental
I get it.
Championship.
They get the rub from being associated with the main event guys, but you also have to understand that if all those guys are kind of locked up in the main event, or, you know, top tier matches and all the pay-per-views, whatever you want to call it, there's still a bunch of guys now who are just feuding over one another over what?
Right, but let's look at the main event last week, where Corbin had to pick 2 guys to go against the Shield, and he picks the Authors of Pain. Now the Authors of Pain have just skyrocketed to the main card, where everybody thinks they should be as far as tag teams. They now become a top tag team. Even though they lost the match, they are now a threat in the tag team division. For when, let's say, Seth and Dean take the tag titles from McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Now the AOP become the new challengers.
I'll make a bet with you right now. I bet you the Authors of Pain either do a run-in and beat up the Shield, or beat a bunch of jobbers next week on Raw. They will not... Having them in a match associated with the Shield will have done nothing for them going forward into next week.
I say they will be involved somehow with the Shield, because if you heard the rumor, and if it's true, Vince loved the main event last week. So I think anytime you hear Vince like something, you kind of have to take the ball and run with it. Yeah. So that
I like the Authors of Pain.
So I think the Authors of Pain might have a little run here. And even if they are beating up a couple jobbers, why not make them still look strong? What happened to the days of guys just looking strong and beating guys in 30 seconds to make them look like badasses?
Because when you're beating a bunch of guys that look like you pulled them out of the front row, it's not impressive. But they've been doing
that for years.
That's when people weren't wise. Okay, that's when, like, the 80s, when people weren't wise to what wrestling was doing. Now you have social media and everything else, and it's not impressive.
But you're thinking of this like a much older fan that knows how this works. Don't forget, WWE does not target the die-hard wrestling fan. They target the families, because, and this is actually a great point that someone told me outside of the podcast. When you target a family, that's a family of 4. You sold 4 tickets to that family. You target to one die-hard wrestling fan, you've only sold 1. That's why...
Yeah, I get it. I understand business, but at the same time, you also have to understand that there is still a large portion of their fan base that is the hardcore fan, and the hardcore fan doesn't want their intelligence insulted.
I understand that, but at the same time, you're talking about, out of 5 people, 4 of them belong in a family, and one's a diehard wrestling fan.
Okay, so what would mean more to the AOP? Would it mean more to them to have 4 consecutive weeks where they beat a bunch of guys that look like they came in from a fucking circus? Or would it mean more to the AOP to beat the Bar or the New Day or somebody with some type of credibility?
Well, you have to build towards it.
Yeah, but you build towards it by beating some sort of established tag teams, not beating the guys that are setting up the ring.
Okay, I don't want to date myself here or date the argument here, but think about this like Rocky 3, okay? Follow me on this.
Okay.
Clubber Lang was never granted the #1 contendership, but still kept fighting guys and knocking them out and knocking them out and knocking them out until he finally confronted Rocky himself and got the #1 contender match and eventually beat Rocky, okay? You have to start somewhere.
I'm not disagreeing.
So there's nothing wrong with the AOP beating up a couple jobbers now and then maybe a week or 2 weeks from now, they beat the Revival. And then a couple weeks after that, they go after the B team, former tag team champions, and beat their former tag team champions.
Yep.
So that's the thing. That helps, and this is kind of what Bruce Pritchard says on his podcast too, is that they have to, sometimes they put titles on guys just to say they're former tag team titles to help elevate other guys.
I get it.
So
And I'm not even saying that a squash match here and there isn't helpful, but they've been, ever since they've been on Raw from NXT, which was right after what, WrestleMania?
I think so.
That's all they've done.
Well, don't forget, they had their visa issues.
Fair enough.
And then the stuff with Titus Worldwide, I guess, was just because there was supposed to be a tag team Money in the Bank match that never happened. That's why Sanity got lost in the abyss, and that's why the AOP got lost in the abyss. But now, at least with AOP, they're starting to show some signs of life there. Sanity, I think, is a lost cause. But let's move on to, speaking of lost causes, a tag team match that was just probably thrown together just to sell tickets here. Bobby Lashley and John Cena versus Elias and Kevin Owens.
Team C Nation takes this one easily. Again, this is, to me, screams that this is somewhat of a glorified house show. You can so easily tell that John Cena was kind of plucked from whatever he's been doing outside of the ring and just placed into this because he has no real feud going with Kevin Owens at the current moment. Granted, they have some type of history there, but they haven't played into that leading into this match. And he hasn't had any really heat or anything going with Elias going into this. So what's the purpose of having Cena in this match other than just to sell tickets and get people to watch? And it's unfortunate because having Cena gone from WWE product for however long he's been gone, you would think that they'd bring him back for something more meaningful than this. And it's just kind of unfortunate.
I agree. So I do think this is also a Cena and Lashley win. Not only that, I think Cena brings back the 6th move of Doom and puts it on TV for the first time.
Who takes the pin? KO or Elias? Probably Elias.
I probably go with Elias. I think it would less affect him taking the pin than it would Kevin Owens. So I think Elias takes the pin there. Our main event, Triple H versus The Undertaker for the last time ever, with Shawn Michaels in Triple H's corner, Kane in The Undertaker's corner. Who wins? What hopefully is the last time ever.
So depending on what you believe, if you believe Shawn Michaels is going to come back and wrestle one more match, I think it will likely be against The Undertaker. But either way, I think The Undertaker needs this win more going forward if he does have any matches left in him, whether it's against Shawn Michaels or against John Cena or against any other guy on the bigger scale like Royal Rumble or like WrestleMania. The reason I say that is Triple H, we already know Triple H going into this is not capable of beating Undertaker. At least that's what they lead you to believe. So in order for Undertaker to save some type of relevance, I think he needs to win more than Triple H. So I'm going to go with Undertaker here.
I think this is a Triple H win. I think Shawn Michaels gets involved and somehow sets up a match for either Survivor Series or Royal Rumble. That's the rumor. And it will be a one-on-one match with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Do you think this match goes over or under 15 minutes?
I think it'll go over because, I mean, this is the match that they've really built this whole show around. So I think that, and this goes back to what I always say, I just hope they deliver in the ring. You know, WWE, a lot of times, for whatever reason, they build up some matches and they don't always deliver in the ring or live up to expectations. To me, I think this has to go at least 15 minutes, and I would expect a good match out of it.
If it's 15 minutes, there's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors, I think. I do not think that Undertaker can really have a 15, 20-minute match and have it be good unless there's a lot of outside storytelling involved. If it's where actual wrestling is involved, I don't think it's going to be that good of a match.
Well, Triple H can carry the match.
Triple H can carry the match, but how much can he carry to where it's an entertaining match?
I'm sure you'll get, you know, they'll go outside the ring, get thrown into a barricade. You'll probably maybe have a table spot, something that will drag it out.
Who has surgically repaired hips.
Well, the Triple H could be the one that goes through the table.
True.
You know, I'm just saying anything that'll extend the
Obviously, Kane and Shawn
match
Michaels in each other's corners is going to affect the match somehow.
Right.
They're not just there to be there. They're going to get involved in this match. I hope it's at least on the Meltzer scale 3.5 stars if it's going to go 15 minutes. If it doesn't, if it goes like 8 minutes, and it's a good 8 to 10 minutes, I wouldn't mind it. Even
does Undertaker perform the Spaniard Fly?
No. Why would he?
Does Kane then?
No.
I'm just saying.
Will Ospreay is not in this match, and neither is Cedric Alexander. You're not seeing a Spanish Fly on here.
Oh, Charlotte Flair did one.
Well, she's not in the match either.
Anything's possible. This is wrestling.
Unless Shawn Michaels does it, which I don't think he does it either. But we're breaking away from what has actually happened here. But that's going to do it here from the Super Showdown predictions.
Shoot or work, Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Click the video on the screen now to see what we think about the rumor. And of course, click that logo to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast.